Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Spellbinders' brand new De-Light-Ful Christmas collection. There are several items that are part of the collection. I have 4 of them. I have the Poinsettia Bloom die set, a Merry Little Christmas Sentiments hot foil plates with coordinating dies, the Glimmer Holly background, and the coordinating layered Glimmer Holly background stencil set. There are several other items that are part of the De-Light-Ful Christmas collection. If you want to check them out, I do have links in the description box below. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. For the background of my card, I have a piece of craft cardstock, and I use Spellbinders in the Pines embossing folder. I also added a fun gold watercolor splatter to the background. I'll layer this piece on some black brushed cardstock. It has this beautiful shimmer finish. Then I'll layer it again on some red cardstock. To adhere the embossed piece, I use some ATG tape and also some glue just to make sure it stays in place since I am adhering it onto a specialty cardstock. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. Using the new Poinsettia Bloom die set, I cut out 2 pieces, one from some white brush cardstock and another from some red cardstock. I'll flip over the white piece, put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back side. Later I'll be inlaying the red flower petals, but first I want to add a little extra ink to the very inside edge of all of the petals. I have a mini stencil mat, and the ink color is from Catherine Pooler. This is Cranberry Fizz. I'm using a small blending brush from Spellbinders and adding just that little bit of ink to the very end of all of the petals. I love the beautiful etched detail on the petals. It really adds a lovely look to the poinsettia. There are several different petal pieces, and it does look a little intimidating to see all of them laid out on my mat, but they're very easy to inlay inside the frame. It's like assembling a jigsaw puzzle. I have just a couple more pieces to add a little bit of ink to the edge. Once those are finished, I'll start inlaying all of the petals. For now, I have just those 2 pieces of adhesive tape on the back side, but it's enough that it covers most of the areas of the petal. Once I have all of them inlaid, I will put some more adhesive on the back side. I really like the look of the flower with the darker coloring on the inside edge of all of the petals. Pink poinsettias are my favorite, but I do like the bold look of the red flower as well. I have just a couple more pieces. For the very center of the flower, I'm using more of the white brushed pearlescent cardstock. Now I'll remove the release paper on the back side, add a few more pieces of some double-sided adhesive tape. This small roll of adhesive tape is left over from one of their monthly card kits, but I believe you can also purchase it individually. I'll put just a couple more pieces on the back side. Then I'll remove the release paper. Before adhering it down, I'll add the sentiment, and this is from a Merry Little Christmas Sentiments hot foil plate set. It has the sentiments and the coordinating dies. I use some white cardstock with black glimmer foil, and the sentiment is "Have yourself a Merry Little Christmas." I'll put glue on the back and adhere it in the lower right-hand corner. I did place an acrylic block on top for some added weight while that glue dried. Now I'll put glue on the back of the poinsettia, just in the areas where I don't have any adhesive tape. Then I'll adhere it above the sentiment more on the left side of the card. I love the large size of the bloom. You could add just a sentiment and your card is finished with such an amazing image. I will place an acrylic block on top to let that glue adhere to the embossed background. I still have the red floral frame, and I'm cutting out a few of the foliage pieces. I'll put 2 of them on the left side of the sentiment, just tuck them underneath, and I'll also add 1 piece on the right side of the card. And the very end will go off the edge. Once that glue dries, I'll flip over the card, use my scissors to trim it off. I think adding the extra foliage pieces in red helps balance out the card, and it ties in with the red color of the poinsettia. I'm cutting off one more leaf on the foliage piece so it doesn't overlap the sentiment. Then I'll flip over my card, use my scissors to trim off the extra. I'm not adding any bling to this card, decided to keep it nice and flat. That way I have some Christmas cards on hand or I don't have to pay extra postage to mail them. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Card design number 2 will feature the Glimmer Holly background plate and also the layered stencil set. And I've already done the hot foiling off camera. I have some white cardstock and I selected this lovely silver holographic glimmer foil. I have my stencil mat and I'll start with stencil number 1. In the bottom right hand corner of the stencil, they are numbered. I'll first line up the stencil on the background. Then to hold the cardstock in place, I'm using Spellbinders Best Ever Craft Tape. This is the 5/8 inch width. There are 3 different sizes. This tape is super sticky, but I find that it doesn't tear your paper. For stencil layer number 1, I'm using Catherine Pooler's Spruce ink color, going for a very dark color. One thing that's really fun about the stencil set, it doesn't actually fill in all of the areas, so if you don't get it lined up perfectly, no one will ever know. You can see when I peel off the stencil, it doesn't fill in all of that foliage leaf area. Now I'll use stencil layer number 2, and I'm also using the same spruce ink color, although this time I'm not adding any extra ink to the brush, just using what's still on it for a very light green color. Once I remove that stencil, you can see the image really coming together with the bright green colors on the background. Now moving on to layer number 3, and this one has all of the holly leaves. I'm switching ink colors using Catherine Pooler's Deck the Halls. It's a slightly different shade of green and also a little bit darker than the spruce color. Now I'll line up the final stencil layer, and this one features the berries. I'm using Catherine Pooler's Rocking Red ink color. I love the contrast of the bright red berries with the white background and all of the green leaves. This is a really fun stencil set. It's easy to line up and I love the finished look. I'll remove this stencil and you can see the finished panel. It's so pretty with all of the shine. I cut down this panel to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and I'll layer it on some dark green cardstock. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. And of course I ran out of ATG tape, so I did need to stop recording and add a new roll. I feel like that happens all the time, and I do make a lot of cards off camera. For a sentiment, I've already hot foiled and cut it out. This is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and I used a beautiful red glimmer foil. I just realized it's the same sentiment I used on the first card, but I did use other sentiments on other cards, and I will show those when I'm finished with this card. I put some foam dimension on the back side of the sentiment. I used Spellbinders White Foam Square Mix. It's their 1 millimeter thickness. This is some of my favorite foam dimension since it doesn't add a lot of thickness to your card. With the white background, I didn't want the sentiment to get lost on the card, so first I'll add a vellum circle die cut. I will cut the edge of the circle so it's flush on the right side of the card. Then I'll add the sentiment, and I'm also adding some holly leaves and berries. And this is part of Spellbinders Make It Merry Florals die set. I'm gluing the 3 individual berries on a red background piece. Then I'll put just a tiny drop of glue at the bottom of each of the leaves. Then I'll adhere the berries on top. And I didn't wait long enough for that glue to dry. One of the leaves fell off. But I'll be holding it all together with some foam dimension on the back. And I'll adhere it on the left side of the sentiment. Then I'll flip over the circle, put glue on the back side just behind the sentiment and the die cut pieces. That way the glue won't show through on the vellum. Now I'll adhere the sentiment in the lower right hand corner. With all of that beautiful shine, I decided not to add any bling. So there is my finished card, and this time I made a total of 6, and all of the cards are slightly different. For some of the cards I used silver glimmer foil, and other cards I went with a gold glimmer foil. I did one on craft cardstock, which is one of my favorites. There's one that has yellow berries, and the final card, another favorite, I decided to go with pink berries and teal leaves. This was an easy set of cards to make. I absolutely love the Glimmer Holly background with the coordinating stencil. You could easily mass produce a bunch of Christmas cards. And while I had my Glimmer machine on, I hot foiled a bunch of Christmas sentiments and used a variety of Glimmer foil colors. Now here's another look at the 8 cards I made using Spellbinders' brand new De-Light-Ful Christmas collection. There are so many fun products part of this collection. I only selected a few to play with. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. It's only July and I already have a good start on my Christmas cards for the year. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.